In January 2023, one product held 83% of the entire AI chatbot market. Not 50%, not 60%, 83%. That product was ChatGPT, and it had only existed for 2 months. This is the story of how the AI chatbot market went from a monopoly to a war in just 4 years. ChatGPT hit 100 million users in just 2 months. No app in history had ever done that. Not Instagram, not TikTok, nothing. It was the fastest consumer product launch ever recorded. Watch what happens to the market between 2023 and 2026. In 2023, ChatGPT is almost the entire chart. Copilot is a distant second at just 8%. Gemini, still called Bard at this point, is sitting at 4%. Everyone else is barely visible. Then 2024 arrives, and the first real shift happens. Google rebrands Bard to Gemini, and that single move, a new name, a new identity, deeper integration into Google's products, sends Gemini's share from 4% all the way up to 21%. ChatGPT still leads at 63%, but the gap has closed dramatically. Copilot actually slips from second to third. A company called DeepSeek appears on the chart for the first time, tiny but present. By 2025, DeepSeek has a viral moment that shocks the industry. Its share jumps from 0.2% to nearly 4% in a single year. Claude, from Anthropic, quietly holds its ground. And ChatGPT, still number one, watches its share slip below 54%. Then comes 2026. ChatGPT is at 44.6%. Gemini is at 37.2%. The gap between first and second place is now just 7 percentage points. This market, which one company once owned almost completely, is now genuinely contested. Google's decision to kill the Bard brand was one of the most impactful rebrands in recent tech history. Gemini's share more than quadrupled in a single year, from 4% to 21%. That is not organic growth. That is a deliberate reset. Look at Gemini's trajectory in isolation. In 2023, it is essentially invisible. 4.2% share, third place behind Copilot. 1 year later, it is at 21%. 1 year after that, 30.7%. By 2026, it is approaching 37%. That is a nearly ninefold increase in market share over 3 years. For context, ChatGPT went the other direction, from 83% down to 44.6% over the same period. ChatGPT did not collapse. Its user base almost certainly grew in absolute terms. But the market grew faster around it, and Gemini absorbed most of that new demand. Now here is the wild card. In 2024, DeepSeek is barely on the map, rank 7, a 0.2% sliver. Then 2025 happens. DeepSeek goes viral. Its model benchmarks against GPT-4 at a fraction of the training cost. The story spreads everywhere. By end of 2025, DeepSeek has climbed to rank 4, with 3.8% share. That is a 19-fold increase in a single year. It briefly ties Claude for fourth place by 2026, both sitting at 4%. A Chinese AI lab that almost no one outside the industry had heard of in 2024 is now a genuine player. DeepSeek's rise was not just a growth story. It was a warning signal for the entire Western AI industry. If a model trained at a fraction of the cost could match frontier performance, the economics of the whole race had just changed. Here's a story that gets less attention. Copilot's quiet slide. In 2023, Microsoft's Copilot was the clear number 2, 8.3% share, well ahead of Gemini. By 2024, Gemini had blown past it. By 2025, Copilot was down to 7.7%. By 2026, 7.4%. It never collapsed. It just got passed. Microsoft had the early advantage of Bing integration and an enterprise push, but neither was enough to keep pace with Google's distribution machine or the sheer cultural momentum behind the new challengers. ChatGPT's traffic share fell from 87% to 57% in just 14 months. That is a 30-point drop at the top of the market. In any other industry, you would call that a crisis. In AI, it just means the competition finally arrived. Step back and look at 2026 as a snapshot. ChatGPT at 44.6%, Gemini at 37.2%, Copilot at 7.4%, DeepSeek at 4.0%, Claude at 4.0%, Grok at 1.7%, Perplexity at 1.1%. 7 meaningful players in a market that 3 years ago was essentially one. The long tail is real now. Grok, Elon Musk's chatbot, launched inside Exia, holds 1.7%. Perplexity, which is chasing a very different use case around search-style answers, holds just over 1%. Neither is dominant, but both are alive and growing. The market has fragmented, and that fragmentation is accelerating. The headline number for 2026 is this: ChatGPT's share fell from 83% to 44.6% in just 3 years. That sounds alarming for OpenAI. But remember, the total market also exploded. More people are using AI chatbots in 2026 than ever before. ChatGPT's absolute user count almost certainly grew. What changed is the competitive context. OpenAI went from owning the category to leading a category. That is a different company. That is a different strategic challenge. And the trend line still points in one direction, toward a closer race. In 2023, one company had captured the world's imagination and held 83% of a market it had essentially invented. 3 years later, that same company still leads AI, but 7 competitors are now in the race, 2 of them closing fast. The AI chatbot market went from a monopoly to a contested space faster than almost any technology market in history. The next data point, wherever it lands, will matter. Subscribe to see it when it drops.